station, Manx Radio.
This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service.
Manx Radio.
It could be said that on this programme we're often to be found looking in two directions at the same time. And that's really what we're doing again today, looking back at the darkest of times in world history and looking forward as a well-known landmark church celebrates its 50th anniversary and repurposes itself to meet the present-day needs of the local community. But first, a time to look back. This coming Tuesday, January the 27th, is Holocaust Memorial Day, and in a few moments we'll be reflecting on what that stands for and, in conversation with Carol Jempson, a member of the local Jewish community, and with Bishop Tricia, we'll be hearing their shared call for us to come together as an island community in an act of witness and solidarity. But first, a hymn that's often used to begin Holocaust memorial services. All people that on earth do dwell, sing to the Lord with cheerful voice, brought to us there by the McCarthy Singers. Holocaust Memorial Day is a time to reflect that, tragically, we live in a world scarred by genocide. Holocaust Memorial Day is fixed on the 27th of January because this is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest of the Nazi death camps. On Holocaust Memorial Day, we remember the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust, alongside the millions of people from other groups also murdered under Nazi persecution. Roma and Sinti people, gay people, political opponents, particularly trades unionists, as well as anyone whose religious beliefs conflicted with Nazi ideology. Sadly, many of these groups didn't receive acknowledgement of their suffering until well after the end of the Second World War. Alongside this, we also recall the more recent genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. The fate of Cambodia shocked the world when the radical communist political party Khmer Rouge, under their leader Pol Pot, seized power in April 1975 and ruthlessly imposed an extremist program to reconstruct Cambodia on the communist model of Mao's China. They aimed to completely remove social classes and Western influences from the country. It was possible for people to be shot simply for knowing a foreign language, wearing glasses, or being seen laughing. One Khmer Rouge slogan ran, "To spare you is no profit, To destroy you is no loss. Over 2 million people were murdered in just 4 years. The world stood by as Hutu extremists shattered the fragile freedom in Rwanda following decades of tension and violence, culminating in the murder of over 1 million Tutsis in just 100 days. In 1992, a brutal war started in Bosnia, during which non-Serbs were persecuted because of their identity. Bosnian Serbs, seeking political domination, waged a campaign of ethnic cleansing against Bosnian Muslims. Communities were divided by ethnicity and neighbours turned against neighbour. The killings culminated in a massacre when around 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were murdered in and around Srebrenica in the space of just 72 hours. Their bodies were bulldozed into mass graves and concealed. The genocide in Srebrenica is the largest incidence of mass murder in Europe since World War II. Darfur is a region in the west of Sudan, in northeast Africa. Before the conflict, Darfur had an ethnically mixed population of around 6 million black Africans and Arabs. In 2003, a civil war began in Darfur between the sedentary population of black African farmers and the nomadic Arab population. The Sudanese government supported Arab militia, the Janjaweed, who destroyed hundreds of villages and murdered at least 200,000 people. Around 2.5 million people were forced to flee their homes and go to makeshift refugee camps in Darfur and Chad run by international aid agencies. Tragically, as you might have seen in recent news, violence has again escalated in this region. Genocide must still be resisted every day. Everywhere it's found, prejudice and the language of hatred must be challenged by us all. Together, we bear witness for those who endured genocide and honour the survivors and all those whose lives were changed beyond recognition. Even When He Is Silent, sung here by the Chamber Choir of London, is a musical setting of words found on the wall of a cellar in Cologne in Germany, where Jews were hiding from the Nazis during the Holocaust. It represents faith, resilience and hope in the darkest of times, and the words continue, "I believe in love even when I am alone. I believe in God even when He is silent." Carol Jempson, a leading member of the island's Jewish community, and Bishop Tricia, Bishop of Sodor and Man, join me now to talk about how they will be marking Holocaust Memorial Day on Tuesday evening and inviting us to join them. Carol, this year you're encouraging a very personal act of remembrance. It's personal, but it is also something that can draw the whole community together. Tell me what you have in mind.
Well, normally we just have Holocaust Memorial commemoration in a building, and of course there's a limited number of people that attend. And this year we hoped for a community event, doing something easy for people, but very, very poignant. So lighting a candle, which is traditional among many faiths in memory of people who died, is easy. We don't have to leave the house to do it, but it has a very powerful message. And if we all do it in memory of Holocaust and all other genocides, then we reflect that it could be us. It could have been us. Our lives could have been stolen. Our futures could have been stolen. So my idea was that it becomes a community event, and hopefully a lot of people on the island will take part.
And so this is going to be on Tuesday, on Holocaust Memorial Day itself, this coming Tuesday.
Yes.
And you're asking us to do this, to light the candle, put it in a window and safely at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night.
Yes. Put it safely in the window. And also, if you don't want to light a candle, you can use a synthetic candle. Maybe the fire brigade would encourage you to do that. But any candle that you feel was appropriate, just to put it in the window in solidarity with the rest of the community. The flame is a very powerful thing. It doesn't speak, but it sends a very, very powerful message. To remember everyone murdered for who they are or what they are, not because they've done anything. And that's the biggest nightmare. People are just killed and persecuted for being themselves.
It's a small flame, but it gives a tremendous amount of light. And we need light in our world, don't we? Because there is still so much hatred, misunderstanding, persecution, and a lot of it stems from ignorance, doesn't it?
It's a very difficult thing to try and analyse. We need to be resilient and have principles, which we stick to and argue for. But it's so easy to go along with the haters who tend to be the most vocal. Despite unimaginable cruelty, Jewish culture, faith and identity endured. Survivors rebuilt lives, families and communities, carrying both grief and courage forward. Their testimony is a gift and a responsibility. And that's how I feel.
You feel that responsibility?
Yes. I feel that responsibility to make sure that no victim of any genocide is ever forgotten. They had their future stolen, not for anything they'd done, just for who they are. I don't know how being the victim of unimaginable horror affects the mind. I don't think anyone does. But I do know a lot of Holocaust survivors didn't talk about it until later on in their lives, when they realised that if they didn't talk about it, it would be lost in history. And I think that may be one of the reasons.
I remember that in 2025, on Easter Day itself, I flew to connect with a group of faith leaders and senior leaders in the Civic Society of the UK. And we travelled with a Jewish organisation and met up with adult survivors of the Nazi Holocaust and travelled with them to various sites around Poland, and heard direct stories from them and from others and accounts of what happened to the Polish people and to Jewish people, to people from a range of backgrounds who were persecuted and targeted by hatred and evil. And we also travelled then to sites of mass killings by ordinary people that are so shocking. And eventually we went together to Auschwitz and to Birkenau, those twin concentration camps, and in that place heard more stories. This annual commemoration is so significant. We know that similar genocides, different perhaps in character, but the same underlying hatred and suspicion of one another and the dehumanisation still stalk our world. And actually, it's not just about looking back. That's important, but it's about looking to what we want to build for the future. So that's very much part of why I'll be wanting on the evening of the 27th to join with others across the island, I hope, but certainly around the world, in lighting a candle that says that actually we affirm our commitment to standing against hatred in all its forms and our commitment to sharing life together. One of the things that will stay with me on that visit to Auschwitz, alongside those, there were 4 of them, now very elderly survivors of the Holocaust, was their deep taking hold of life and the energy with which they carried themselves and the laughter. So that sense of resilience is deeply part of the countering of evil. Greater people have said you don't drive out darkness with more darkness. Only light can do that. So that sense of taking hold of what's good in the world and taking hold of what's good in our commitment to one another, that's what I believe we're called to. I'm also aware of more recent genocides, and I'm particularly thinking about the genocide in Bosnia and my encounter with a man who I always try and bring him into as much as I can, because meeting him was truly life-changing. And this man's name, he's still alive, is Kamal Pavanik. And as his name might imply, he is a Bosnian Muslim. And he suffered the most amazing and dreadful torture as part of that genocide. And one of the most profound things is he described when he was detained the person who interviewed him and ultimately made the decision to send him to the concentration camps in Bosnia was his former teacher. And the way in which communities could be so fractured that a student and a teacher could sit on opposite sides of a table, and that the teacher who had had the care for that student could decide solely on the basis of this person's background and faith to send him to a concentration camp where the likelihood was that he would die. We think that was the past, and it's still so much nearer to us than we can imagine. Kamal, when we met him, said this. After he eventually survived and was released, he had this revelation. He was in the shower and his life had been consumed, as you would expect, with bitterness and great anger. And he suddenly had this revelation that said, unless I can choose to forgive, I can never let go of this. And he decided there and then to forgive and to be able to let go, not solely for what that meant for the people he was forgiving, but for what that meant about his own release. And his resilience in that moment is so striking. He just said, I could continue to hate, but actually forgiveness is going to allow me to move on. Really profoundly striking.
Freedom is fragile and it cannot be taken for granted. Genocide never just happens. The perpetrator regimes, like the Nazis, gradually, over a period of time, restrict and then remove the freedoms of those they're targeting. And then the killings begin. Eva Schloss died just a few weeks ago at the age of 92, a survivor of Auschwitz, where she suffered unimaginably as a teenage prisoner and where her father and brother died. Eva and her mother just barely survived, and after being liberated by the Russians, gradually rebuilt their lives. Drawn together by a shared grief, Eva's mother eventually married widower Otto Frank, who had lost his wife and his daughter Anne Frank in the death camp. Eva Schloss visited the island in 2010 and told her powerfully moving story packed with details of unimaginable suffering and cruelty that could never be forgotten. But more moving still was her ability to see the world and the people in it as wonderful.
In the camp, we prayed to God, stop this, please help. And God didn't answer, God didn't do anything. So I must say I came out of the camp an atheist, I didn't believe in anything. So, if you have no beliefs in anything, it was really very, very difficult. I must say the birth of my first daughter was, in my eyes, a miracle because I was damaged mentally and physically. And to be able to give a birth to a perfect, wonderful child was really a miracle. And then I started to slowly get back my confidence and as well a trust in people and as well a belief. When I realized how wonderful our bodies work, how nature works, how beautiful the world is, I started to believe that God or something is everywhere in us. Anybody survived this is really a miracle. And I must say I appreciate that. Every day I realize I'm alive, and it's now 65 years ago that all this happened to me, and I had a very wonderful life really. I had experienced wonderful things and I've met wonderful people. Life is wonderful. There are some terrible things in it as well, but as well great wonderful things. So I'm a happy person, I'm an optimist. So my talk, it is about a terrible period in our time. People did survive and people have made a life for themselves again. And we have all families. Life is wonderful.
If you'd like to know more about Holocaust Memorial Day, there's a very informative website at hmd.org.uk. And now it's time to wish a happy golden anniversary to the Promenade Methodist Church here in Douglas, the landmark church with its illuminated cross visible not just from Douglas Prom, but out in the bay too. They're having a special anniversary service this morning, giving thanks for 50 years of being a beacon of light and hope. On the programme next week, I'm going to be joined by historian and devoted member of the Prom Church, Frank Cowan, with fascinating facts and great stories about the life of the church. I'll also be going to talk to the people responsible for creating the Prom space, moving the church forward and finding new ways to serve the community as the Prom Church has always done. So I hope you'll join me next Sunday for that. And we'll finish now with a look at this week's notice board, beginning with services and events taking place later today. Port Erin Gospel Church have another visiting evangelist who'll be speaking at their services for the next 2 weeks. He's Reverend Philip Kyle from Northern Ireland, and he'll be preaching today, the 25th, and next Sunday, February the 1st. Services in Port Erin Gospel Church are every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. and 7 p.m, with a warm welcome for all. Selby Methodist Church invite you to an afternoon of music this afternoon at 2:30. It's a selection of Baroque and Renaissance music, and taking part are Heartsease, the Burnbrae Ensemble and Trio Lumina, and soloist Andrew Cole will be playing Marcello's Oboe Concerto. The concert will be followed by refreshments. It's just £10 payable at the door, with free admission for children under 12. And this evening there'll be another of the very popular bilingual Manx English services, and it'll be celebrating the Bible in Manx on the theme From Salvation Language to Language Salvation. That service is at Ballabeg Chapel tonight at 6:30. Reverend Dr. Janet Corlett will lead, and it'll be followed by refreshments. And there'll be another bilingual Manx English service next Sunday, February the 1st, and it will be another celebration of the Bible in Manx. This service will be at 2:30 next Sunday afternoon in Bigarrow Chapel. That's on the main road just outside Kirkmichael. Everyone's welcome, and the service will be followed by refreshments. Looking to the week ahead, and the Bride Wesley Guild meets tomorrow evening in Bride Methodist Church Hall, and everyone is welcome to an evening of interesting talks and fellowship. Tomorrow evening, the guest speaker is His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor. It'll start at 7:30, and there will be light refreshments served after the talk. On Tuesday the 27th, there's a coffee morning in Mount Tabor, Port St Mary Methodist Church. The kettle will be boiling from 10 o'clock till 11:30. On Thursday the 29th, it's time for tea at 3 in Ballagary Chapel in St Mark's. A sumptuous afternoon tea served from 3 o'clock. Just turn up for a lovely traditional tea and enjoy the fellowship and a bit of banter. That's at Ballagary Methodist Chapel in St Mark's. And we finish now with a look ahead to next weekend. On Saturday the 31st, Selby Methodist Church have their annual coffee morning in Ramsey Town Hall. Open from 10 a.m, there'll be lots of stalls and raffles too. Admission is just £1, including a cup of tea or coffee. And that's all that we have time for now, but I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock with Sundown, and I'd love you to come and join me in our virtual lounge for a great selection of easy listening music, plus your requests and dedications. So, till whenever we meet again, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and wishing you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week, and a very good morning.
Station